Well, welcome back. You've made it to week 5. This is exciting. So how did last week go for you? Were you able to add more fiber into your diet? Are you still celebrating yourself? I hope so. Well, today I'd like to talk to you about an important factor of a raw food lifestyle, of changing what you're doing to make your life better, and that's loving yourself. You know, in Galatians 5:14 it says, love your neighbor as yourself. And it's very difficult to love your neighbor if you have never really learned to love you. One of the things that happened when I changed my lifestyle is that I forgave myself for the first time in my life. And with that, I learned to love me. When I learned to love me, I learned to accept me. And for the first time in 49 years, I was comfortable in my own skin. Well, what happened with that is I could accept other people's love for me. I could accept God's love for me in a way that I never could. And I could love others unconditionally because I was okay with me. It changed my world. It changed my life. It changed my outlook on life. I became positive. I was no longer comparing myself to other people. And even though this was like 2 days into changing my lifestyle and eating plant-based foods, I'd only lost maybe a pound. But I loved the way I looked. When I looked in the mirror, I saw somebody who was pretty for the first time. And if we can't love ourselves, it's real hard to have a positive self-talk. You know, you're on this journey. You're making progress. You're exercising. You're changing the way you think. You're changing the way you eat. If you eat something that maybe wasn't a good choice, what do you say to yourself? Do you say, oh, I can't believe I did that. I'm just going to blow it the rest of the day because I've already ruined today? Do you beat yourself up? Are you negative? You know, listen to the words that you say to yourself, and you'll find out how much you really love you. Because when you love something and you value it, you're going to be kind to it. You're going to speak well to it. You know, I remember being in a yoga class and the instructor saying, don't judge yourself. And I'm thinking, what is he talking about? And I'm laying there trying to get my body to do whatever he's wanting us to do. And then he says, don't say I'm too old to move my body this way. Don't say I can't do this, it hurts. Say I'm doing this because I'm going to better my life. I'm doing this because I'm going to get fit. You know, it's just sometimes just changing the way we say things can help us love ourselves more. And when we know we're doing things to better our lives, then we can stay on focus and stay on task. So I encourage you to find out if you love yourself. You know, listen to your self-talk and see what you're saying. And again, it's hard to celebrate something you don't love. So as we're talking about celebrating yourself and celebrating the small victories, I encourage you to forgive yourself if you need to learn to love you and to move forward in this life of vitality. Okay, today we have a fun recipe, 2 fun recipes actually, but cashew cheese. This is by far one of the favorite nut-based cheeses that I make. And we're going to start out with 2 cups of cashews. Now, cashews, any nut that I use, I soak. I'll soak it in pure water. Cashews I only soak for 2 to 4 hours. And I soak them and then I measure them. So this is 2 heaping cups of cashews. Oops. Let's start in the right order. Remember I said last week that you need to put whatever is softest in the blender first. If I were to put the nuts in here first and then the bell pepper on top, it would get bogged down. So here we have a red bell pepper, and I'm just going to cut it right under where the green stem is. When we do that, I can pull out the seeds and the pith, and then we just can take this and break off the stem and throw that in. And again, with the Vitamix, we don't need to make these in, I'm going to shake out these seeds here. We don't need to cut them in small pieces. Then we're going to add our nuts. And cashews are a nut that we use to make a lot of cheeses. You can make cheesecake, amazing desserts, amazing cheeses out of cashews because they blend so well. And cashews are actually not a nut, they're a legume. They're in the same family as peanuts and peas and lentils. We're going to use 1/4 cup of lemon juice. Oops. And 1 teaspoon of salt. So the recipe is 2 cups of cashews, 1 bell pepper, 1/4 cup of lemon juice, and a teaspoon of salt. All right, so this takes just a little bit to get it blending. And again, once I get things that are where it's blended and it's not chunky, you'll see me again pulling up the tamper so it can start to pull down, because that's when it gets really smooth and creamy. You can see how smooth that is. It's absolutely perfect. This recipe is hard to mess up. And again, this is my basic recipe: 2 cups of nuts, 1/4 cup of lemon, and you can add a yellow bell pepper and a little bit of nutritional yeast, and it will become nacho cheese. You can, instead of a bell pepper, you can add water and basil or rosemary and make basil cheese or rosemary cheese. It's endless what you can do with the basic recipe. So I'm going to put this in this bowl. And if you don't have a high power blender, it will be challenging to make this, because the nuts really do need to be blended smooth. Some people do it in a food processor, and if you let it go for 5, 10, 15 minutes, sometimes you can get a fairly good consistency with the cashews. Now again, you're going to have nutrients because we've got the nuts are soaked, and so the enzyme inhibitor has been released, which I believe we talked about, I think the first week maybe. So there's food enzymes in this that are going to help us digest. And it's full of nutrients, but it also is high in calories because it's nut-based. So this is not something you want to sit down and eat a bowl of like this. 2, 3, 4 ounces is going to be more than enough. And you'll find that because it's full of nutrients, it's not going to require a lot. So now we are going to make with our cheese, which you can eat this with carrot sticks. You can put it as a spread on sandwich. If you're still using bread or using gluten-free bread or sprouted grain breads, you can use it as a mayonnaise instead of mayonnaise, and as a sauce. This is a collard green. Most people, when they think of collard greens, they think of bacon grease and cooking these down to where they're just mush. But we like to eat them raw. And they are really nice to use as a wrap. Now this has a really thick stem in it. And the way that I do collard greens, I will cut it off right about there so that I have a bigger, a wider section at the bottom. Then I'm going to cut around this. So I'm not going to go all the way to the top, but just where it's its thickest. So I cut on each side of it, and then I just cut it at the middle. So this is pliable, because otherwise it's too thick to bend. And then I start with the round end. I put that toward me, and I'm going to take, the red pepper cheese. We're just going to spread it on here. Now, this is a favorite of kids. I know my granddaughter, who's 9, she loves the red pepper cheese. eating it with carrots or with peas, snap peas. Okay, next we're going to just put whatever veggies you have on hand, whatever veggies you like. Here's a cucumber that, actually one of the things, well, I will show you this. You know, last week we used cucumbers and we just sliced the whole thing, but this time, because of the water content of the seeds, I'm going to scrape it out. So this one was really, it had lots of liquid in there. Otherwise it will just kind of break down our wrap if it's got too much moisture. And I'm just going to slice these in thin strips. I'm just going to lay it all the way across. We want it to go all the way out to the edges. Then I have some veggies here that I've already prepared. We have some bell pepper, red and yellow bell pepper, that we'll put across here. This is kind of like a party in your mouth. And again, your imagination is the only thing that keeps you from having a fabulous wrap every time. If you want to use a sprouted grain wrap, an Ezekiel 9 wrap, or a gluten-free wrap, that works also. The one thing about I have found with the gluten-free wraps, they still have a lot of processed ingredients in it. They may not have wheat or rye or barley, but they have a lot of highly processed flours and sometimes sugars and sweeteners and oils. So I tend to stay, if I'm going to have a wrap, I stay with the Ezekiel 9, the sprouted grain wrap. Even though it has some wheat in it, I tend to do better with those. This is the spaghetti. I had made some earlier, so it's zucchini that I had made into spaghetti. So I'm going to use that for the wrap. It works well. I'm going to throw some red onions on here. And I'm going to wipe this up a little bit. All right, so now we're ready to wrap. So you're just going to hold everything really tight. Also, if you have lettuce or sprouts, it's really good in here. And if you don't like a lot of vegetables right now, I think your taste buds will change. But if you don't like a lot of vegetables, adding the lettuce to it makes it much fuller. The way I like to do this is take a toothpick and stick it on either side. And then I'm just going to cut it at an angle. Okay, we're going to get a plate and put this on it. And here we have our salad that you can eat with your hands, our collard wraps. And again, you can use any vegetables you want. You can use a lettuce leaf if you don't want to use the actual collard green. You could use a romaine lettuce leaf. You could use sprouted grain. There's a lot of options to do for wraps. But it's a fun way to eat. It's very fulfilling in your stomach because of the nutrients that are in here. The collard greens have a lot of protein, a lot of antioxidants. They're very good for us. Anything that's dark and leafy green is really good. So today we've had our red pepper cheese recipe and our collard wraps. And again, this can be used in a variety of ways. Once you learn to make this recipe, you can make anything you want out of it. It freezes well. Anything that's nut-based will freeze. It will become a little thicker. This, you can see, when this cools down a little bit in the fridge, it will become a little bit thicker. But when you freeze it, it'll be kind of pasty. You just have to stir it. It doesn't change the flavor at all. So it keeps well. You know, this makes quite a bit. You can freeze it in little containers and send it with your kids with some carrots or celery sticks, and they can have that like a hummus, or take it for your lunch. It's a quick and easy way to be able to have something available that's healthy. This will keep in your fridge for up to 2 weeks, and many times it lasts even longer than that. But I know for 2 weeks it'll be nice and tasty. So again, as you go into week 5, I just encourage you to look at loving yourself, celebrating you, and making better choices today so tomorrow can be your best, so that you can live in optimum health.